Trucking into the future in partnership with News 18 Network.
Also joining us on this panel is Mr. Piyush Gupta, Vice President Supply Chain, Tata Steel. We're very happy to have on this panel with us Mr. Saurabh Palsania, Executive Director, Group Commercial Head, Dalmia Cement Bharat Limited. VG Sakti Kumar, Managing Director, Swing Setter India Private Limited, is our next panelist for this panel. And we're also being joined by Deepthi Vaishnav, Managing Director, Lead Industrial and Mobility, Accenture India. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Deepthi. Over to you, Parikshit.
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Lots to discuss. And I guess the moment I entered the Taj Palace Hotel today and met some great people from the industry, I think everyone had this in their mind. Yes, the national logistics policy has been touted as a game changer, but what real impact will it have? How will it be implemented? Everyone sees some kind of teething challenges when it comes to the national logistics policy. And when we speak about trucking into the future, we really have the best experts from the industry here. There's a lot to think about. The future of trucking will depend on our electric vehicle and alternate fuel roadmap, our road safety and vehicle safety roadmap as well, and a lot on the national logistics policy, the PM Gati Shakti mission. So a lot of pieces of this puzzle are still evolving over the next 10 years, and it will be very interesting to speak to our panelists about that. So let's not waste any more time. Let's start off straight away and fire questions to our panelists. Mr. Wagh, let me begin by asking you. In fact, let me ask each of our panelists about the national logistics policy. How do they see this, and do they feel there are certain challenges when it comes to implementation? Mr. Wagh, beginning with you.
Okay, thank you, Parikshit. I think the Honorable Prime Minister announced the national logistics policy a few days back with a very ambitious intent to bring down the logistics cost as percentage of GDP from 14 to 10 and below. I think it's a very good start or good beginning and a good direction which has been set for all the stakeholders in the logistics industry. If I speak about a commercial vehicle OEM, for example, and that too on roadways, I think first thing we need to do is to bring down the total cost of ownership, right, in each of the commercial vehicles that we're producing. I think today, for example, roadways cost almost double that of railways. I think we have to see how to bring this cost down going forward, number one. Number two, I would say that turnaround times are also becoming equally important, right? And we need to also bring down the turnaround times, which lead to higher asset utilization, which also therefore would bring down the cost of logistics. I think since you asked about challenges, as you rightly mentioned in your opening speech, I think the logistics policy actually involves 16 ministries, right? And in my view, integration is one of the big challenges here, and I would look at it at three levels. First is at the policy level. The policy level itself, I think you need a lot of ministries to be integrated, number one. Number two is, I would say, at technology level, because it calls for a multimodal logistics parks to be set up. But more so, I think having technology platform as the backbone of this entire ULIP, right? And that technology platform and managing that on an ongoing basis, tracking each and every consignment in the country, be it air, road, rail, waterways, whatever, is going to be extremely important. And third, I would say an integration at the operational level. Again, you know, ensuring that we move from air to road to rail and waterways in a very integrated, seamless manner. I think these are some of the challenges that I see. But I think all of us need to take them on and move towards this ambitious goal of reducing the logistics cost.
All right. Thank you for those opening remarks, Mr. Wagh. Mr. Palsania, coming to you, just to get a view of the cement industry from Dalmia Cements. from the point of view of your industry, when it comes to bringing down logistics cost, does this policy really fit all the pieces of the puzzle? Are there any specifics that you're looking at?
So I think, what I think Girish said, that it is just setting up a stage for all stakeholders from the ministry side and from the user side or the manufacturer side altogether, and see how, they can work together to take out the major benefits out of this policy. So I'll say that as a cement industry, which presently is operating at a 23% share of railway, or means that 77% comes through the road traffic only, it is very useful in terms of, say, it is somehow linked with the Gati Shakti, which identifies that how we have to interlink, or we have to provide last mile and first mile connectivity to all the manufacturing units as well as the delivery units. So this is where I think through ULIP and e-logs or leads, we'll be able to identify that and provide a platform to, say, accelerate the growth.
Right. Mr. Gupta, we were talking earlier also, when you came in, the policy focuses a lot on a digital interface, United Logistics interface as well, but we spoke about how to move the country faster. Harmonization of documents has been spoken about in this policy, but what would you really want in order to make sure that this document moves faster, lesser documents may be needed? Your view on that?
Thank you, Parikshit. See, first of all, what this policy does is to bring out this backbone, which you talked about, into a front bone. This used to be a hidden cost, which customers would find it difficult to pay, and suppliers don't want it to be incurred. We want to minimize it. And this policy is actually addressing the elephant in the room, that we want to address logistics as a cost. What we are looking at is, when you talk about digital, it is only going to make this country into a seamless single country. Today, the reason why we are not fast is because the run time and sitting time or the idle time for any trucker, the ratio is not there to balance out. And if you look at this equation, wherein there is a regulatory authority, which is government, there is receivers of the service, which is all of us as customers, and providers of that service, which are the truckers and transporters, the equations are not balanced. A trucker will not make money if you do not give a faster run for them. When we say 30 kilometers an hour, it basically means a truck can run only for 300 kilometers. There is no way you can get that money back because the turnaround times are going to be longer. So we have to shorten the turnaround time, and which is the single most reason to make it faster. Other thing which is laudable in this whole effort, which is what has been done by commercial vehicle companies, is to make the life of a trucker, the truck drivers, more convenient. Today you have air-conditioned cabins, which means they can actually run the vehicle for 10 to 12 hours in decent atmosphere which is there in the cabin. And on the safety part of it, which is so much important, we see in the advertisements also, all the advertisements are focused now today on safety. If you make it safer and faster, we will get there. And on the digital piece will be a big enabler for it, because today trucks have to wait, and they wait for converting that idle time into run time. And that's what we are hoping for.
Right. I'd also ask our audience to watch the discussion very closely. We'll be opening up to questions in the last 5 or 10 minutes, so keep your questions coming, keep noting down your questions as well. Mr. Shakti Kumar, if I were to come to you, give us a sense of the kind of pain points you have been experiencing when it comes to moving your goods from the south of India to the north of India, and how does this really compare to your businesses across the globe?
Actually, it's a very good question for me. Our products are quite huge in volume, but doesn't weigh much. You'll be surprised to know a containerized consignment from India, from Chennai port to Manila, is cheaper than bringing it to Delhi here. So that's how the logistic things are kept working against businesses like ours. So we try various opportunities like possibilities like getting in on the railway, and again the wagon availability is a big challenge. They want return loads, and the first mile, last mile cost again makes it equal to the road transportation. So these are all the bigger challenges. Firstly, we appreciate the government for bringing this policy, and there are too many stakeholders to involve and work upon this to make sure. We are hopeful that soon we will move towards the path, and it is very much required. If you don't do this, our aspiration is to become a big nation, with a developed nation with a 5 trillion GDP and an export house. All these things depends very much on what we are going to do on our logistic cost.
Right. Thank you very much. And we'll also discuss, maybe somewhere later in the discussion, there has been a lot of talk about bringing India's logistics cost in line with global benchmarks by 2030, coming within the 25 countries in terms of top logistics performance index rankings as well. Is that a goal we should try faster than the 2030 timeline? That's something we'll discuss as well. But Ms. Vaishnav, to open this up to you, compared to the logistics sectors in countries like Singapore, China, which really lead the logistics performance index, what more do we need to do?
Right. So I think a lot has been pointed out with the panelists here. But to emphasize on the shortcomings, if you look at it, the first shortcoming that comes to our mind is the infrastructure itself, right? Our connectivity from a long-haul distance perspective and the way it has been set up, and our dependency on road transport. Today, we have 40% of our transportation dependent on 2% of our roads, right? And that's really the national highways. Which brings to the point of what is the right model mix for the country. China progresses today because 2/3 of its most mass perishable products are being sent through waterways. And what does that really do is that it reduces the wastage in the entire supply chain. In our agricultural dominant country, if you see 40% of the wastage is largely because of the delay that happens. And turn it back around to say that how it will benefit then the farmers, the price to the customers. So that's really the one differentiation. The other thing that has really happened over a period of time is the adoption of digital and how the entire distribution network has been set up. If you look at a country like Germany, which is known for its automotive space, and it's also the #1 in the logistics sector, they have set up freight villages. And what these freight villages really do is that they are the nodal points between the regional distribution center and the long-haul centers. And they are also the custom clearance centers. They are also the vehicle maintenance centers. They are also there for the security. So imagine a place or a hub which is actually driving everything for a corporate or for a transporter. And the use of technology. We track technology very, very closely. And the way blockchain today is getting used, when somebody talked about documentation, right from tracking from where the documentation started to who the user is, to also saying that within warehouses, today most of the European countries have moved out of paper. Everything works with speech recognition. That saves time, that brings in efficiency. This is a very interesting example that in Europe, flowers is a very big business, right? And the quality of flowers by the time they reach a particular destination is of utmost importance. So you can understand the urgency and the speed that it really needs. So the logistics sectors have actually done radio frequency sensors on critical nodes, which gives the visibility to the entire person who is at the receiving dock to the, to where it's supposed to be shipped from. So I think these are all the interventions that are needed, and that's where India will need to catch up significantly from a logistics point of view. And largely, like somebody pointed out, the whole process on documentation, the number of, I would say even bureaucracy for that extent, that each of these corporates have to manage on an ongoing basis. The transparency that it will bring in the system is of significant value, and that today, one cannot put a number to it. But if you just pull it out and try and see the impact. So that's where the space is really moving. It's a long time for us to catch up, but the current policy is a great foundation. And I know we will definitely get there because we have done that with our digital transactions. We have done that in the way we have now digitized a lot of interesting elements within India. So it's a great and an interesting space to wait and watch out for.
All right. Mr. Piyush, if I were to ask you, you were hearing Ms. Vaishnav. Now, looking at some of the global examples that she has given, she spoke about the need for transparency, the need for efficiency, visibility in the supply chain. What are some of the global cues, what are some of the global examples that India could pick up when it comes to the logistics sector?
So visibility is actually coming in as a key requirement for both customers as well as suppliers. Today, you don't want to get surprised, you don't want unpleasant surprises, and you want to know where is my material. And for that to happen, the documents have to talk digitally. What country has done with monetary transactions in terms of the payment gateways has to be done on digital gateways for logistics. So whenever a company ships out anything, the document is generated, and that is the only time when it should be seen. And after that, you don't need anything else to hand it over. So you can have multiple, multiple points on which it has to be shown, and that's what keeps taking time. And consumer does not get to see it. What has really got changed with e-commerce is the visibility of the material. Where is my order? And that is the piece which has to get faster and better. Along with that, of course, we have to make it in a way that we can also do monetary transactions on it. Because today, what happened during COVID, and we saw that in the first 6 months to 12 months, the world global digital payment system got underway to change. We did not have to make paper documents for affecting all transactions. Even banks accepted electronic bills of lading. The certificates of origin, which used to be a paper document, was accepted in a digital manner. So do we need a pandemic to change digital? Not really. And that's what this policy can do. So I think we have to go after this particular policy to really implement it in the spirit and in the letter or in the paper to make sure that we create those digital gateways or pathways.
Right. So harmonization of documents, ULIP, these are things that the logistics policy does talk about. But just to speak about the pain points, Mr. Palsania, when it comes to the cement industry, once again, just give a sense to our audience about the kind of paperwork that is needed currently. How does that delay your deliveries in a real-time situation? And do you have any clarity from the government on how this new policy will help you reduce that paperwork?
So, Ritesh, I think I will talk about the change that has, in the last few years, it has brought to the logistics. So, yeah, I accepted that earlier on there were a lot of papers and there was, very less visibility of your material. But I think last 3 years, there is a good amount of technology improvement. And as a company, as a Dalmia Cement, we have introduced a lot of technology into it, and today we can say right from loading of cement to delivery to the customer, it is all digitized. Except that whatever is required on the way, that still somewhere, in some locations in India, still we have to carry papers along with the trucker. But rest of it, 90% of it has come out of that paper job. So there is a good amount of improvement as far as technology is concerned. So I'll say that policy is there now. Technology is what is required to boost up the technology in this sector. And lastly, it is more important to adopt it. So presently, maybe that many of the industries have adopted the technology, but we need to push this technology, or you can say there should be pull work. On the other side, we can say the companies have to come out, the consumers have to come out with more and more digitization. So, I think 2030 will not be a big challenge.
2030 will not be?
Reaching to that level where what is expected from industries, till 2030 will not be a big challenge.
All right.
Once technology is adopted.
Okay, once technology is adopted, getting to those benchmarks by 2030 will not be difficult. Mr. Bagh, coming to you, from an OEM point of view, give us a sense of the kind of changes you are making in your own vehicles, in your own commercial vehicles, to address some of the daily logistics challenges in the country.
Right. I think before I get into the daily logistics challenges, since I've heard the panel speaking about what kind of challenges will be there to implement the national logistics policy, I think after hearing all those challenges, I think the first starting point is to get going. You know, even in electrification, when we started, there were a lot of naysayers, and people thought about why should we look at electrification of tank to wheel, that is a vehicle electrification, when well to wheel is not on renewable. But I think every part of the value chain should commit to it and start working towards it, which is what we've done on electrification. Similarly, on national logistics policy, I think quite a few challenges have been listed out, but we as the commercial vehicle OEM, we are committed to doing whatever is required to ensure that we implement this national logistics policy. Now, what we will do, therefore, as a part of that, the first, as I said, is I think we will continue to bring in new technology in the products, which reduce the total cost of ownership, which also improve the power to weight ratio, and therefore improve the average speed from 30 kmph that we spoke about to 40, 50, 60. So the vehicle should be capable so that the asset turnaround time reduces, right? And therefore we are able to have higher asset utilization. That's on the product. On the technology front, I think if the ULIP has to work, I think the vehicle, the truck, is going to be a very critical cog in the wheel, and therefore we will have a vehicle which will have highest level of connectivity, whether it is vehicle to vehicle or vehicle to infrastructure. So that's the capability we will build through our fleet edge. Finally, I think a good point was made on comfort and convenience for the drivers. Piyush spoke about it. I think we will keep on increasing the benchmark there, which will help the drivers to drive more distance every day. I think that's about the products, but that's not all about it. Finally, how it delivers on the road is important. So coming to the services, I think we are committed to bring in superior value-added services, whether it is a fuel efficiency management program. So your product may be capable of delivering some fuel efficiency, but it should actually deliver on the road, and therefore we will take full ownership of the vehicle and deliver that fuel efficiency. Or if turnaround time is important, for that uptime of a vehicle, of the asset is important, so we are ready to take uptime assurance of the vehicle. Or, this morning I was speaking with some of our key customers, and they said that, you take full charge of the entire fleet. So we are ready to come up with a fleet management solution which helps them or enables them to focus on delivering better service to their consumer. So that's something that we are ready to do on the services side. And finally, I think since there are a number of stakeholders in the ecosystem, I think orchestrating that, integrating that, and beyond that, doing something for the key stakeholders is also important. So let me take example of driver, which Piyush spoke about. I think we need to do much more for them to improve their quality of life. So for example, Tata Motors has an insurance product which is given with every truck called as Samarth, which has a health insurance, an accidental insurance, educational support for the children, and also financial planning, which is very important for the drivers. So we are focusing on improving their quality of life. Or you take, for the example, the mechanics, right? We want mechanics to be ready to deliver service to even technologically advanced products. So we are taking care of not only their training, but bringing them on a technology platform and therefore connecting the customer to the mechanics. So we are committed to doing all these things which will help implement and address all the challenges of the NLP.
Okay. So you've given a sense of what the company is doing at an OEM level to help your fleet operators, help the customer, deliver goods on time, and give him better visibility as well. Mr. Gupta, coming to you, when we speak about the national logistics policy, do you think there will be greater opportunities for certain segments of commercial vehicles?
Indeed. What we will have to look at, the national logistics policy will not be limited only to road. I think the country is going to wake up now to Scope 3 emissions, which will affect both sea as well as road and rail. Different sectors depend on railways and road, depending on their layout as well as how much distance do they need to cover. So when Saurabh talked about percentage of road and rail, our percentage is exactly the opposite. We do 77% by rail and 23% by road. But road is going to be a very important determinant of what will happen in Scope 3. And that is one piece which the policy some point in time will talk about. So it is talked about safety, it's talked about greener and faster. And for the greening of this whole industry or logistics, we will have to start worrying about the whole Scope 3 piece. And for that, we cannot only look at the large commercial vehicles. The multimodal concept means that you have to get your product delivered to the point, which could be either rail or sea, and control the emissions which come out. Today, India does not measure Scope 3. So we are very happy to report Scope 1 and Scope 2, and we forget about Scope 3. It is only a matter of time. And that's when the speed of change, when it comes to electrification for size of the vehicle, will start to happen. Railways is already electrified, but that electricity is not really the green electricity. So they have to think about it. But compared to road, they're much better. But for
Tata Motors presents Trucking into the Future in partnership with News 18 Network.